And I think a lot of women have some story, as do men, as to why they can't do the next thing. And if not now, when, right? Like once you turn 50, you go, God, if not now, when? Like, when am I going to take this risk? And what happened with me was the fear of not taking the risk overcame the fear of taking the risk.
Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita, and the founder of Power Purpose Play, a global community of women in midlife. I'm here to tell you that it's your time now to rediscover what has always been inside of you and bring that out into the world. If you're wondering what's next, but don't know quite what that is, or if you feel a twinge in your heart telling you that you have so much more to do and so much more to offer, you're in the right place. Ask yourself, if not now, when? Do you want to leave your job, start your own business, take control of your health, reignite the passion in your marriage, write that book, or at least that first chapter? Transitions like this can be daunting, but through listening to my story and interviews with incredible women every week, I hope to inspire you to take action. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I hope wherever you are safe and healthy. Thank you for being here and spending your precious time with me. You could be in many places, but I'm so glad that you've taken this time for yourself. As I speak to you, I was saddened to learn of the passing of India's greatest singer, Lata Mangeshkar, at the age of 92. She was the iconic singer whose voice graced Indian households, including mine, for generations. So many great legends like Lata Mangeshkar have left us, and it reminds us again to appreciate what we have, doesn't it? Our lives are so precious. Let's make sure we live each day fully and positively and try and bring positivity into the world, just as she did. Today's guest is an example of a person who does just that. Bringing positivity through connections is Libby Wildman's mantra, and I'm so pleased to interview her today. Enjoy our conversation on the power of connections, our stories, and our liminal escapes. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I hope this year has started out really well for you and you are excited for what is in store for you. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of Power Purpose Play. We are a global movement of women in midlife who are saying with confidence, it's my time now. And we are dedicated to helping you rediscover your inner power and purpose in this next chapter of your life. To that end, I interview incredible women every week who will serve as inspiration for you and who will give you examples of how to face the obstacles in your way and take that first step towards reinvention. I am both thrilled and honored to have on our show today, Libby Wildman. Libby is a head of wealth advisory at Davis Rea. She is the creator of Liminal Escapes and the founder of The Collective. In the financial world, Libby's mission is to help people achieve their definition of financial freedom faster. As the only woman in financial boardrooms for years, she never backed down from a challenge, but also wanted to give other women a voice and a place to do business on their own terms. So she founded The Collective to do just that. If that wasn't enough, Libby wanted a further challenge and a further way of bringing people together who have a desire to explore themselves deeper. She designed Liminal Escapes as a retreat held in majestic locations where people will connect and create memories they'll share for years to come. Her curated retreats are perfect for people who crave community, adventure, and self-discovery. One of the greatest things about Libby is that at her core, and as we'll discover today, Libby loves to help people and is a natural connector. I discovered that myself when we instantly connected, and she was so generous as to have me highlighted as a superwoman entrepreneur on her platform. I can't wait to get into our conversation, as I'm sure those listening will learn a great deal as well. So welcome. I know that was long, but welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, Libby. How are you?
Thanks, Kavita. I'm good. You pay other very smart women to help you articulate what it is that you want to show to the world. So it's always interesting to hear back what you've spent a lot of time from your insides to try and put out to the world. So yeah,
absolutely. You're welcome. So yes, as I mentioned in my introduction, so many things that you've done have resonate with me. And you founded your own wealth advisory company over 30 years ago, and that connection with your clients, I think, was key. You also you formed the collective to connect women together. And you also are now created Liminal Escapes in order to help and connect people who have a real desire to explore themselves. So as I look at this, obviously there's this constant theme of connection I see throughout your life. So if you could just tell, our listeners a little bit about parts of your story that you think you'd like to share, and where did this connection piece come from, and share that with us.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, interestingly, since you're helping women in their mid-50s, and I turn 56 in a couple of weeks, pretty much all the changes I've made in my life have been in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think talking to my girlfriends and other women in their 50s, we have this huge desire, once I say we're still young enough that people won't think we're their grandmother, but we're old enough that we have years of wisdom and intelligence and skill sets where we sit around and we often say, where can I give back? Like, where can I really make a difference? And selfishly, so that we feel good about ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. But also because we feel good because we're giving back. And I think men maybe hit midlife crisis in a different way. Maybe they join a band or buy a Corvette or something. Yeah, I mean, a lot of men worry about their footprint too, but it's really, I think we're a really fortunate generation that we have been allowed to enter the workforce and really add in a meaningful way. Because I talked to my mom and she said at university, which she was even lucky to go to, you either took secretarial school, you became a teacher, or a nurse. There were very few doors open. So it wasn't easy. And there was a lot of patting on the bums and man speak and a few other things that were really not so pleasant along the way. But we still had huge opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think the women of the next generation have a completely different problem in that now they can do whatever they want. And what is it that they want? And so it's sort of an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in terms of absolutely. I mean, we're in this kind of wonderful stage, I would say, where we have all this experience, like you mentioned, and skills. And now we're asking ourselves, maybe we've forgotten who we were, and what really is, what our passions were, and how can we bring that forward? And so based on your life experience, this idea of connection, tell me how did that come about? Where is that a natural thing? Is that something you learned?
Yeah, I would say that came out of a lot of deep pain in my childhood, where I felt like a loser, and I was a redhead with a lot of freckles and a little chubby, and I had an older brother who, I guess in hindsight, had some insecurity issues, but chose to put me down throughout my life. And so I learned to dim my life so that I wouldn't be beaten up or verbally abused. And I just often felt like I didn't really fit in. And I would say in my adult life, I joined a lot of organizations where I felt I was giving back and being me. And I just still always felt this, I don't know if I fit in. And it was probably about 15 years ago where I thought, if this is not a hell yes, like if I'm not going to this all day meeting at this entrepreneurs organization or women's group or whatever it is, if I don't feel good about myself, if I don't love it, then why am I going? I'm busy, and I don't need that irky feeling. And so I thought, if I feel this way, there's got to be a lot of people who feel this way. Mm-hmm. And so laughingly, I decided to make my own club. It's like being 13. And the only criteria was you had to be a woman who's an entrepreneur, and I had to like you. Like, we had to have this connection thing.
Yes.
So I used to take people to lunch, and I would pay because I hate middle child and I don't want to feel people to feel obligated. So I would do lunch and we would have this great conversation. And if we clicked, I was like, great, you're in. And I really didn't care about your income levels because, there's CEO Global, there's Entrepreneurs Organization, there's YPO, but that was really serving the really, really large women entrepreneurs. And I really just wanted a place for women to come and connect. And it wasn't anti-men, it was pro-women. And I would say it started off my home, and I would come home early and cook dinner, and we'd have 10 women, and then we would each have 20 minutes to half an hour to talk about our current issue, which sometimes was my daughter has cancer or I'm going through a divorce. And inevitably we would all cry. And I thought if men were at the table, they would feel very uncomfortable with that because it's not their nature.
Right.
Right. I'm sure you felt this, Kavita. Your feelings start bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. And then they have to overflow. And when you cry, you just feel this instant release.
Yes.
And so when the women cried around our table, nobody got up and hugged them or said, they're there. I mean, I might pass the Kleenex box, but we just kind of said, yeah, like, I get it.
I get it. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to also provide a space where women could be themselves and talk about things in our own way of talking about it. And that might be employee culture, it might be whatever, and that was a huge step for me to think that somebody would take time to come to my home.
Yeah.
Didn't charge. Later on, I charged just to cover food and things like that. But I was so intense on, am I providing value, right? And I remember my daughter said to me, Mom, you got this. You'll be good. It's coming from the right place. I look back now and I go, why was I so scared? But you are. It's like, who am I to think I'm going to add value?
Wow. I mean, firstly, that you even did that, how generous is that? And recognizing that people need a group or a community connection, and just to be able to speak and not have to be worried about what they're saying or what they're feeling. And that's what I'm trying to create as well with Power Purpose Play. But when you said
you are creating it, you already have. I've listened to numerous
yes.
podcasts from ages up to 80 on.
Yes. Thank you.
You're all really quite special people.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. But one of the things that I want to hone in on is when you said that when you were growing up, you didn't fit in. And to me, that seems, I think when people, especially women, they look at other women, like successful women like you, they get intimidated, and they find that, I think that is what holds women back, especially at this age. I want to get your opinion on that, because they're comparing themselves to people like you or others in the media, social media, and they're saying, oh, well, even if I want to do this thing, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I'm scared. And what I'm doing is trying to release those energy blocks that stop us from getting what we really want to achieve, right? And it's usually inner blocks. So I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on that, and why do we continually compare ourselves to others?
Yeah, and self-sabotage. So, I mean, first of all, that is what you're helping women with in your course, and talk to a number of women who I've encouraged to do that, because you and I may be very used to this sort of thing. I hired coaches in my 20s, and so I'm quite used to having paid people to help me figure my crap out, right? And to cry with and not leave monkeys on their back and all of that. But for women who are maybe thinking for the first time in my life, should I join this, or is it going to be kumbaya, we're all holding hands and crying and touchy-feely? It's like, no, there's really good work that is done. But my father used to say, scratch an extrovert and you'll find a very insecure person. So there's a part of me that is confident, but there's a part of me that is deeply, deeply insecure. And I grew up in an industry that A, was all men, but B, back in 1988, when I joined London Life and we were selling life insurance, every month, exactly what you did in sales production was put on a bulletin board and shared across the country. So you were deeply, deeply judged by how many people bought insurance from you and how many dollars they gave you. It was only about 10 years ago that I decided, like, what else can I do that dovetails with my financial services business? And it was really hard for me because I had to step back from making as much money as I was to do things like the Collective, which was a passion project, and then start Liminal Escapes during COVID. And I really found it difficult not to see my name in lights, because not only did I feel I was being judged by everybody else, I was judging myself. And I'm really fortunate that my partner, John, just repeatedly will say to me, like, look, you're stretching, you're going for it, you're doing different things. Like, what does it really matter if somebody sold a bigger life insurance policy than you did? But that was just this world that I was in for 30 years. And so we need people like you. And I have many, many, many coaches that I pay for them because I believe if you're paying someone to help you, you have the right to talk about yourself for an hour. And I always feel guilty if I'm taking up too much space to talk about myself. So that was sort of my way to deal with that. And I think a lot of that is out of reach for women today because it costs a lot of money. And so I think that was sort of the whole thing behind the collective. I just wanted anybody who wanted to step forward to afford to come and spend a day with some other fabulous women. I'm not sure I answered your question, but that was sort of where.
No, you did. I mean, it's where we are at this moment in life, and really what we want to spend our time on. Do we want to, like I say, it's my time now. Do we want to spend the time in ourselves? Because we've really spent a lot of time, and not that it's bad. I mean, that's just our stage of life, helping others and looking after others, whether it's our kids or our parents or spouses, whoever it is. So I think getting over those obstacles and really saying, it's time for me to figure it out and to really put it out there, because we really have the the next half of our life to go after, right? So,
I was a single mom for about 17 years, bringing up the kids and paying for them. And those were very scary times. There was often in the middle of the night, I would literally get up and I would write out, what am I making? What do I owe? What's my nest egg? Like, what's my safety net? It was very scary times. And I also wanted to be home at about 3:30 once my kids were in high school. Otherwise, I was worried there'd be a grow up on my back deck because it would be the empty divorcee's house, right? Because I've actually been divorced twice. So I made the mistake of finding men I thought I could fix. But so it was a lot of what I did with my coaches was I would say, I can't do that because I have 3 kids that I have to bring up and I have to make a certain amount of money to be able to pay for them and do this and do that. And I finally had this coach who was like, Libby, just drop the story. And I'm like, what do you mean drop the story? It's not a story. And it really took me a while to resonate with that. And I think a lot of women have some story, as do men, as to why they can't do the next thing. And I just thank God for the people who did come into my life and really encouraged me. And I guess the younger woman I was to say, if not now, when, right? Like once you turn 50, you go, God, if not now, when? Like, when am I going to take this risk? And what happened with me was the fear of not taking the risk overcame the fear of taking the risk. And so that's where I just really decided I had to do some different things.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. The fear of not taking the risk. Yeah. I think that kind of overlaps with, I think that the theme that I'm finding for many women that I speak with is that confidence piece, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I heard there's a quote that I came across that says, confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is instead, I'll be fine if they don't. Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I got my Oprah magazine because I signed up for something at 3:30 in the morning a month ago when I couldn't sleep. And in it, Brene Brown, love this because it's actually very similar. Brene Brown, in her new book, she said, we are desperately trying to find safe harbor somewhere out there, but the port is really within us. And that's much, again, what you say. I just think, we can't do it alone. So what you're offering is that friend without a hook that is going to listen to you and encourage you to do whatever is inside of you. And not everybody will be called, and that's okay too. Right? But I don't look at what I'm doing as Superwoman at all. I just look at my whole life long, because I didn't belong. I want other people to feel like they belong. And even if that's 2 or 3 people, it doesn't have to be a lot of people. So how can I, if I meet somebody and I think in my head, oh my God, they should meet this other person. Why wouldn't I do that? And then the more you do it, it's like a muscle. First couple times you're really afraid because people are going to go, are you kidding me? Like, why? But the more and more you do it, and then you get these accolades back, and then you go, oh,
yeah,
it's working. It's like if you're playing golf, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever hit that sweet spot of it? And then you have 10 crappy shots, but that one shot will make you coming back, make you keep coming back.
That's what I actually really resonate with what you were saying earlier about bringing people together. Like you brought people to your home, and that's what I've always been raised with. Like my mother always said, if you, whenever anybody comes into your home, treat them like God, right? Because not only is it, so it's just the generosity thing as well, right? And one of the things you said, and I know we're kind of going maybe all over the place, but you talked about connecting. And one of the things in my previous work, as I was in sales, and I was very successful. And one of the reasons I was is because I always used to think, I wasn't selling the product. It was more, what is this product? How is this going to change that person's life? And what is the outcome of it? And I think what you've done in your life, probably the same. I mean, I know that you're, in terms of your financial background, you talk to a lot of people about their money story and what is your services? How is it going to change their life? And I wanted to ask you a question about abundance. Mm-hmm. And what is really your definition of abundance? Because I know that for a lot of people, and for me growing up, being in an immigrant family, it was all about money and the lack of it, or the fact that you had to work really hard to get your money. But now, as I'm growing older, abundance is not just monetary. Obviously, it's about abundance of your inner being, your life, relationships, and all that. So what is your definition of abundance?
I totally agree. And on an esoteric level, abundance is sure about the love in your life and friendship and health, ability to have the freedom to be who you want to be, say what you want to say, and all that. But what I've found with people who have deep money issues, and you're right, Kavita, because they do get passed on from generation to generation. And my dad saw his dad cry when, after his brother got killed in an accident, my grandfather was supposed to be moved to Winnipeg. And my grandmother said, like, are you kidding? My son's not even cold in the ground. We're not moving. And my grandfather was then fired because he wouldn't move. So my dad saw his dad cry because they were broke, and my grandmother had to then go to work. And so he became this huge saver. And there was this fear around being broke. But so yes, abundance is about that totality of your life. However, if you have this deep-seated fear around, I'm going to be a bag lady, I am going to be broke, I might lose my house, all of those things, it's actually really hard to get to those other areas of your life. And so what I love helping people to discover is often these fears and these stories, whether it's snakes or spiders or money, have been passed on, and they're actually not their stories. So they need the time and the space for me to ask the right questions for them to uncover that, and then to breathe and let go. Because you truly, if you are fearful, because money is something in our society, you cannot live without a certain amount of money. So if you really are living in that place of fear, it affects your marriage. It affects your relationship with your kids. It affects potentially your skin and your body and the clothes you wear, and therefore how you feel about yourself. So they really are very much connected. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, because I often read these books or titles about abundance, and if you believe it, it will come. And but as my coach says, you can't just think and dream and pray for a Mercedes in your driveway. You have to take divine action and actually then get out there and hustle and create whatever you need to create in your daily life to then create the money to buy the Mercedes, if that is your objective. Maybe your objective is to take 3 months off every year and go volunteer at a women's shelter. I don't know what it is, but you can't just say, oh, positivity is going to get that. It's the positivity plus the action, and then making sure you have the right support group to share that with. I've been helping a lot of young people in their 20s and 30s. Like this one young girl reached out to me on LinkedIn, and she said, Libby, I just can't get out of debt. And we ended up chatting. And what we figured out with her is, when she was younger, her father, anytime she was depressed, would say, here's $100, go buy yourself a dress. I'm sure it'll make you feel better. And that was his way of showing love. But now here she is in her 30s, and every time she's sad or upset, she goes shopping. And it is a completely self-fulfilling sabotage.
Right.
So I totally agree with you about abundance. However, I think there, in our society, maybe more than a long time ago, money has to be dealt with in order for you to feel abundance in the other areas of your life.
100%. And I completely agree with that, especially when you were talking about the Mercedes that well,
The Secret, when The Secret came out, that book, right? And it's like, it's so ridiculous to think you're going to sit and pray every day and some bloody big car is going to show up in your driveway.
Yeah. I think what The Secret did was they made it too simplified. I think what it is, and I'll get your opinion on this because you've worked with clients. What I believe in is the real power of visualization, right? So if you're, let's say you have in your head or your mind that, okay, I want to get that Mercedes, right? So you kind of plant that seed. Kind of becomes in your core, and you open yourself to possibilities around you, but you also do the action, like you said, positivity plus action equals results, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with that. You have to, it's visualizing it and then taking inspired action in order to get it. You can't just sit there and expect it to come to you. I talk a lot in my course about, it's called the inner mentor. And the inner mentor is really you 20 years from now, let's say, right?
Yeah.
And if you can visualize yourself in great detail in 20 years or however, 30 years, and you believe that visualization of yourself is actually going to happen, then things will come your way that if you're open to it, like the connections come your way, ironic things happen. So I know that in terms of dealing with your clients, did you ever use that kind of technique, like to have them think about their future and visualize it? Or hi, my friend, Kavita here. Do you often feel blocked from moving forward? We all feel that way at times. These are referred to as energy blocks. I've created a short, actionable PDF guide to help you release your negative energy blocks. Click the link in the description to download it now for free. Now, let's get back to the episode.
I think those beliefs have been around for a long, long time, and just how we explain them and how we verbalize them changes to be more modern with our language. So one of my coaches said, if your goal is to lose weight and get fit, you don't say, well, I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week, because that's just a boring motivation. But if you say, I want to feel good, I want those old clothes to fit better again, I want to buy a new bikini or whatever it might be, and your motivation is to see you looking fit, having more energy, and feeling good about yourself, that's your goal, not going to the gym 3 days a week. So as you say, if your visualization is yourself 20 years from now in this job where you work 3 days a week and your financial bank accounts are no longer a fearful spot for you, that visualization of feeling confident, the stress of money is gone away, that's actually the motivation and the vision you want to keep. And then they work with you to say, what are the actions that I need to now do then to take me there? So I think it's just putting it in the proper perspective as to where the motivation comes. Like, I know one of the Olympic rowers I knew very well, we actually grew up with Silken Lauman in Lauren Park, and she would visualize standing on the podium with a medal around her. And that's what got her motivated every day to get up and work out. She wasn't motivated to work out. She was motivated to be on the podium. So I think I totally agree with what you're saying, but you need ongoing people in your life, because there are days where you wake up and you're shattered.
Of course.
Like you're shattered for whatever reason.
Especially now. I mean, it's so difficult, right? Everything that's happening is so difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have podcasts like yours that I listen to. I've got books I might just read for 5 minutes. I might have a friend I call. Like when I'm having a bad day, I might even cancel an appointment and go for a walk, because it's like there's not even any point in talking to that person because I'm flat and I'm not going to be able to help them. So it's having many things, many tools in my tool chest to
how do I feel better today?
Right.
And maybe today is just not the day that I should speak to anybody, quite frankly.
It's really about the energy that we have within us, right? And if we have positive energy, then and then we're able to give it. But if we're not there, then it's hard to. So just want to maybe switch a little bit and talk about your venture, Liminal Escapes. And I looked up for people who don't know what that means. Liminal
is it not the best word ever?
It is awesome. Yeah, I looked it up and I'm like, what does that mean? So it means to be on the precipice of something new, but not quite there yet. So those are transitionary periods. And the reason I love that is because it's exactly the midlife transition that we're going through. So obviously that there's so much there, because when you're in a transition, sometimes there's a trigger that happens that makes you think, okay, I need to change, or something needs to change. And so tell us a little bit about how you came up with that and the name and what you do there and what the benefit is.
So I guess in March or April of 2020, right? COVID started. Mm-hmm. Our business just got shut down because of COVID. We had about 4 or 5 months where there was no income coming in, and my 3 kids, and I was quite afraid. And I usually like to say, when I'm deeply, deeply fearful, where can I be of service, just to get my mind off myself? Because I know in many respects I have a very blessed life, full of love and healthy children, right? And all of that. And I got introduced to this woman, Jill McCabe, who offered an 8-week intensive course. And it was about starting businesses online. I mean, mine is not online, but she was still able to help me. And so out of that came this Liminal Escapes. And I can actually show you what Lori-Ann King, who is the woman who's been running, it probably looks backwards.
Nice. No, it doesn't.
She painted this on a rock from our cottage at Point of Barrow, which is an island, and it's a 1902 cabin where there's no plugs and it's a outdoor shelter and things. But that inspired me to want to take it outside of Canada because of the beautiful colors and that. But what I found, and I think, Kavita, given what you did, you probably went to a lot of conferences in your life. Mm-hmm. You stand around and they have these motivational speakers, and like they get you to hug the people next door to you, like standing beside you, and you're having these epiphanies, and maybe you're crying, going, oh my God, I'm so motivated. And then I thought, why are we not doing this with the most important people in our lives, which are our families?
Right.
I want to have an aha, instead of trying to explain when I come home to my partner or my kids, oh, this great feeling that I had. Would really love for them to have that feeling. And I have an older brother who's estranged. I haven't really spoken to him in about 20 years. And my parents have been remarried, and I've been divorced twice. And I thought, there's so much misunderstanding that goes on in families. Like, Dad wasn't there. Well, Dad was building a business, and so he was trying to pay the bills for all the kids, for instance, right? Or my brother's an asshole. And as I get older, I realize no one's misbehaving on purpose. We all have our own stories. We're all deeply afraid of something. And so is there a way to bring people together and to have just small doors open? So like send a father and son off with a fishing guide for an afternoon to fish. They don't speak to each other. They don't really know each other very well, right? He's like 65 and the son is 40. But I gave them a task. I want you to come up with 2 stories, one before you were 15 and another time when you're older, when you were deeply afraid, and share them with each other. So they have a fishing guide there in case they don't really know what to talk about. They've got fish, activity to do, and then they have this little project. And well, what does that matter? You say, all I care about, and if we do these family retreats, they can be in Newfoundland or France. I don't really care. Mm-hmm. But all I care about is if at the end of that, they each have a little insight into each other, and they go, oh, that was my story about why he was the way he is. Or maybe I didn't realize that my son actually had that fear when he was little, and I wasn't there to help him with it. Mm-hmm. And if the outcome is at the end of a 5 or 6 day retreat for families or for other individuals, but with families, that they email each other more often, or they talk on the phone every once in a while, or they call each other on their birthday. They don't have to be huge things, but you start by opening up, just understanding things from someone else's perspective. So this Liminal Escapes is really the whole world was in a place of our future. Our lives have changed, but we don't yet know our future. And that's what COVID did to the whole bloody world for the first time ever in the history of the world.
The flu of 1918 was much more because my mother lost her mother in 1918, or her grandmother, I guess. But this was the first time it was worldwide that we all were living in this place of, holy smokes, man, what do we do?
Yeah.
And I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not a Michelle Obama. I can't go and affect thousands of people. But if I can help 3 or 4 people and therefore they're in a better place to help someone, like I'm okay with that now. Mm-hmm. This is my favorite mug that I drink out of. And it's Princess Anne when she got married. But nice. It just reminds me that even the royal family is screwed up. Would you want to be a princess today? I don't know, man. Like, no, I don't want to be that. But you think you do because they have all this money and glam.
Yeah.
And yet they've showed us that it's all about how you feel inside, and they're not even allowed to express that.
Yeah. I love that because you're bringing people together, like, as you mentioned, the father and son who you think would know each other, but don't. And what can they gain from just even spending some quality time together? And I so agree with the fact that right now it's such a hard time. And I actually started my business when COVID started too, right? And I actually had the thought before that this was going to be live retreats, similar to what connecting. It's about the connections and the stories people can share with each other. But then it went online. And so you talked about the stories that people say, and I think, or tell each other. And obviously, the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I learn every day, every single week from the stories, women's stories. So what is it about that story piece that you think is so important for each of us to tell? And how has that helped you in your life?
Yeah. And I know people, if they're watching this on video, I do have Tourette's. So if I look all over the place, I watch myself in videos sometimes and it drives me nuts. But anyway, if I'm looking all over the place, that's why.
I wouldn't even have noticed. I wouldn't have noticed. So.
Well, because I think sometimes people think I'm not paying attention. But so my belief, I have fun every time we get into a cab, and often cabs are new immigrants or new Canadians, as my dad used to call them. And they used to be a doctor in another country, and here they are here giving up their whole lives for their children. I really believe that if you're curious and you ask the right questions and you shut up and listen, everybody has a fantastic story. And it just feeds me. I mean, I learn from their story. And whether I agree with it or not, there's always some pearl of wisdom in there. Mm-hmm. But I really, really love listening to people's stories. And some stories have some messages that I think can be shared en masse and help lots and lots of people, and others are much smaller in nature. But I just think by encouraging people to share their stories and even acknowledging their story or their particular hardship that they went through, mm-hmm. maybe that makes them feel good for one little moment. Like, I bet you anything, Kavita, you've had days where you're down and out, and I don't know, maybe you're walking down the street and somebody just stops and says something nice to you, like, gosh, you look awesome in that orangey red blouse today. and then you never see them again. But for one moment, they make you feel good. And you actually have the presence of mind to let it sink in, let it go past the front door and say, wow, that's really nice. Actually, I needed that. And I just think sometimes little angels come along. And sometimes they're big angels, like somebody. I wanted to ask you, like, so when you started your business, Purpose, Power, Play, were you not afraid of the financial ramifications behind that?
Oh, of course. I mean, can you imagine? I was in a very comfortable career, and that was a company car, like everything, right? And
status
and success, but inside I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. But it was very scary. And that's why I always ask that question about courage. How do we get the courage to move on? But I think it's a whole combination of things. It wasn't just the career. It was also, obviously, during menopause, you have the health issues, the changes in your health, and then relationships. You kind of come to, like, where am I at this point, and who am I? What do I really want? And then what is stopping me, right? Those are the big questions. Yeah. And, but I think having the courage piece is so important, because if you don't take that risk, it's never going to happen, right? If you don't And I don't know where it's going. I mean, I have a vision of it. Like, we talked about vision before, but I have the faith that everything I'm doing is for a reason. And as like you said, if I help even a few people, then that's wonderful. I think that you're talking about the stories, and I think right now, especially because there's so much negativity around us. And I truly believe that the more positive stories that we share, because you turn on the news and it's all negative, right? So
I don't watch the news anymore.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah. So I think having that, it may seem, but it just sharing the positive stories is in my mind, even if it helps a few people to motivate them, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, I think it's very, very important. And you obviously had enough people in your life that you felt supported enough to do that. It's interesting. And I know I find sometimes there's TMI, too much information out there also in the news about people sharing horrific things that have happened in their life. And therefore that triggered them to do fill in the blanks. Again, we've all had those things happen to us, some more horrific than others. And when I was 45, I was bringing up 3 children, making lots of money. I was the president of my own firm. I was on charity boards. I was giving money away. I was running half marathons. And I ended up being in the hospital and having acute bilateral pulmonary emboli, which was very serious blood clots. And then 4 years later, I had breast cancer. And the thing for me was, because something like 80% of people say they're happy they had cancer. And this is my point to this, not that I had breast cancer, but the 80% of people are actually glad they had cancer. And it's because they felt they had the right, once they got so sick, to say to everybody, I need to take time for me. And that was more the aha for me, not like, oh, I almost died, I need to take time for me. But that when I got better and I went right back into this whole treadmill of doing all the same things, I started hoping I would get sick again, because then I would have the right to say to everybody, bugger off, because I'm the my family and I look after my parents and kids and blah, 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 blah. I would have the right to say to everybody, actually, I'm just going to go up to the cottage for a month and just hang and do nothing. And I thought, why do I have to be sick in order to do that? That was really more my aha. Why do I not feel that I have the right to organize my life in such a manner that brings me joy? And this other thing I was reading about Brene today, she said, shame kills creativity and innovation. And she said, perfection comes from, if I look perfect, which I don't think consciously I was trying to do perfection, but if I look perfect, I can avoid and minimize shame, judgment, and blame. And I think it took me a long time, and again, lots of people of support, to step outside of all the things I was supposed to do and to say to people or cancel on people occasionally and say, actually, no, I don't have the energy today, or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to step outside being the top bulletin board woman in the financial services industry because I want to do liminal escapes and bring people joy, which selfishly brings me joy. So I think, as you were saying, we have to be aware of these signs that come to us.
Yeah.
And I saw the most beautiful definition of faith, because whether you're Muslim or Catholic or whatever it might be, faith is the belief that every single day, whatever is happening to you is for your better learning and good. So whether you pray to a God or an entity or the universe or whatever, it is just that faith that, Kavita, you are doing what you're doing from a very good place of you wanting to help people. And you are going to believe that if you keep doing the right things, that therefore it is going to happen. It's never going to look the way you envision it, right? It changes. It'll probably be bigger and greater and more wonderful than actually ever imagine. Because Marianne Williamson will say, human beings are not afraid of their dark side. They're actually afraid of their light and how big they can shine.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's fear of success, right?
Yeah. So I really, I was mentoring a woman the other day, and I said to her, do you have to get sick before you feel like you have the right to take control of your life again? Yeah. And that was just coming from a place of, I got sick because I ran myself into the ground.
Yeah. What you just said really triggered something for me, because firstly, I'm glad that you're better. But these triggers, I had a guest on my podcast. Her name is Linda Rossetti, and she is an expert in transitions. And she says that you always have a transition. There's always a trigger, right? And then her definition is that transitions occur when there's a shift in what holds value and meaning to us. Okay.
I love that.
And she's done a lot of research on transitions, but my point is that why do we have to wait for that trigger before we make a change? Why can't we think about, or before the health scare, or before the job loss, or before the divorce, or whatever, right? If we really have that inside, let's try and make those changes or those transitions earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think part of it, Kavita, is it's just humans. I mean, honestly, if our life was perfect, why would we be here? We would leave this physical self and be gone, because it's just, nobody escapes life. We've all seen very well, like the royal family, you would think they have this fairy tale life. So I think we have many, many transitions in our life. And I would love to listen to that podcast, because I think we do. And that's actually part of the joy is recognizing, like, now I recognize, oh, I'm bored, I'm antsy. It's time for a transition. So who can I talk to? Do I need to go and spend a day walking, writing, thinking to figure out what I now want to do? And it becomes a muscle.
Yes.
Where I'm much more comfortable transitioning now. And so
that's great.
So I think you're helping people transition. And as I asked you, does it have to be somebody who wants to start a new business? And you said not at all, because there's tons of women who have been home bringing up the children and being an integral part of keeping that family together. And now the kids have left, and it's like they got fired from their job, but nobody warned them and nobody gave them training for their next job.
Exactly.
I see that all the time. And I would love for a lot of women out there who maybe haven't been in the workforce, but they have been intently running a big job, their house and their families, to reach out and say, it's time for me.
Yeah.
And let's have somebody like you who can professionally lead them down. What should I think about? What am I capable of? And what can I do for myself?
Absolutely. And thanks for that. I mean, it's not just about career. I mean, and like you said, it's kind of like looking at your life as a wheel, right?
Freudian slip.
Yeah. So which aspects of your life are you really wanting to work on? Like, you work on one first, one segment, and you look at the next, and then you look at the next, and then what is important to you right now? How have your values changed, and how do you want to move forward, and bring those values into whatever you do next? So that brings me to my next question. So I called my program, It's My Time Now.
Yep.
And like we talked about, it's really our time now to go for whatever it is that's in our hearts. So what is it your time now for, Libby?
Well, my favorite sort of feeling, I guess, or saying that I share with my partner, John, now is, how good can we stand it? Like, I really find that sometimes life starts to go along and things all really are working out. And then you almost self-sabotage, right? Because you're looking for the other shoe to drop, or needle in the haystack. So I have a lovely new big bathtub at my new condo. And I got into it the other night, and I put on some music and bath salts and a candle, and I started thinking, and I got out, and I came out to John, and I said, I figured out what I want to do when I grow up. So I really want to create a series that I would love to pitch to either Netflix or Amazon. And I have some clients in that area, where I start to interview families, or the head of a family, or maybe father, daughter, mother, whatever, but and ask them about, not how did you become so successful, because I think there's lots of those sorts of shows around, but what was your childhood like? How did that shape your feelings, and then your parenting style, or what you did in life? And how can then we have you share that with your family, so they understand now that their stories and their feelings were actually yours, and we give them the freedom to let go of those and understand you, but move on with their own lives, and to share those stories so that people can see, maybe literally, like we were around in the 70s when the boat people came from Vietnam. And I just recently met a family who went through this, and I was like, I had no idea you went through all that. Of course, that's why you live the way you live, or you make certain decisions coming from that background. Or Gabor Mate, I watched his movie on trauma, and there was this wealthy young man who lives in the streets and is addicted to drugs because his parents were never home, but they constantly handed him money. And he was talking about this on the street to Gabor. So that is my thing that I am working on. So I'm hoping to get on to CTV and things like that, and to start to just talk about money stories. But ultimately, I would like to find some brave people who will come forward and talk about their childhood memories and happenings, and to share how that shapes things. So that's what I really want to do.
That sounds like it's right, exactly what you should be doing, because it brings together all your passions, your storytelling, your connections, and everything, all your joy. So you should absolutely do it. And I'll be the first to listen to that.
Yeah. Well, or maybe have you on. No, it's funny because growing up, I wanted to be Diane Sawyer or Oprah. And it wasn't because of wealth or anything, but I actually love speaking on stage, and I love attention because I guess I never got enough growing up. But it was this investigative getting into people's lives and having them trust you enough to share a story. And what I find, like me doing this with you, I've learned a whole bunch of stuff about myself.
That's great.
I always find it's a win-win when you do these things. So thank you very much, because we don't know each other that well in doing this, because I think it's super cool. And the more we can share these things and have beautiful people like you with your energy making these small pebbles make bigger and bigger rings, then just the better our communities will be.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I always wanted to be a journalist, and now full circle, here I am. Kind of interviewing and being the journalist that I've always wanted to be. So I really appreciate your insights and your sharing your story. And we could talk for a long time, but just good luck with your new venture. I hope that I'd love to hear more about that. And
now that I've stated publicly, now I have to make work on it.
Well, thank you so much, Libby. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll be in touch.
We will see you for a party when we're all allowed to.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. I so loved my conversation with Libby, and I hope you did too. A natural connector and brilliant leader, Libby gave us so many wonderful takeaways that we can incorporate into our daily lives. Here are her key takeaways. Number 1, if what you're doing is not a hell yes, then why are you doing it? Number 2, if not now, when? I took the risk because the fear of not taking the risk overcame the fear of taking the risk. Number 3, we can't do it alone. We need that friend without a hook that is going to listen to you and encourage you to do whatever is inside of you. 4, if you're living in this place of fear about money, it can affect all other aspects of your life. Abundance is about that totality of your life. But if you have this deep-seated fear that you're going to be broke, it's hard to get to those other areas of your life. 5, liminal means to be on the precipice of something new, but not quite there yet. These are transitionary periods in our lives. Let's try and get a little insight into each other and understand small aspects of each other's stories so that we can make these transitions easier. Number 6, if you're curious and you ask the right questions and you shut up and listen, everybody has a fantastic story. Number 7, the more and more we can help people create small pebbles which make bigger and bigger rings, the better our communities will be. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope these conversations and takeaways remind you to live each moment of your life to the fullest. I'm here for you to help you do just that. As your personal life transition and core energy coach, I can help you crystallize what you want and how to get there. Join our first group coaching session of the year, beginning on March 22nd of our program, It's My Time Now. As Libby said, if not now, when? Let me lead you forward to realize your full potential. It really is your time. Contact me for more information, and until next week, my friends, stay safe and stay well.